What's up, you lovely people? Welcome to the channel for another video. Yesterday, many of you asked me actually to go through the article of Jessica Reed Krause. I always mix that up. And so we are here on her page where she posted this very interesting article. So let's go through it together. Also because it's very nicely put in a timeline or what happened, right? The connection of AH we discussed yesterday in the new interview of Johnny Depp, together with the billionaires, the newspaper, and so on and so forth. So it's very nice to see it in a chronological time. So if you've been paying attention, perhaps you've noticed how the media is working strategically to frazzle our perception of the trial we witnessed between Johnny Depp and AH last year. Mainstream outlets are unfolding a calculated campaign to repair and reclaim Heard's reputation by painting her as an unrequited victim of abuse, and him an abuse who got away with it. So, nothing new there. The Netflix documentary is the latest example. It offered nothing new or compelling. Thumbs up, true. In fact, this was decidedly boring, but showed exactly where the narrative is headed: to shift public opinion by planting doubts through the media, production, and news conglomerate that are influential influenced by the billionaires Heard is still conveniently tied to. We discussed that as well. Fully agree on that. It's also my opinion. Remember Dan Wootton, the British New Zealand broadcaster journalist who said that Depp trial was a farce designed to ruin Amber Heard's life? The mouthpiece who called J.K. Rowling an hypocrite in The Sun in 2018 for baking Depp despite claiming to be a proponent of the Me Too movement. The writer behind the April 2022 Daily Mail hit piece that called Johnny a pathetic excuse of a man who was not a victim of cancel culture but instead a proponent of it, set out to ruin his ex-wife no matter what the cost. Well, he's been exposed as a raging hypocrite. Here's a breakdown of how it all connects. First of all, I mean, glorious sort of revenge for Johnny Depp, especially when somebody like Wootton is going through a lot himself. You remember this article? Let's move along. You know that Wootton bigger public crucifixion of Depp was the article he published in The Sun describing Depp as a wife beater, which resulted in Depp filing a lawsuit against him while Johnny lost the case in the UK, likely due to suspicious behind-the-scene deals with all well-known connected UK judge. It seems karma is finally catching up to Dan Wootton. So Dan Wootton's got exposed by the ex-boyfriend after spreading years fighting for Heard's reputation on social media and in the press. Heard's artist working justice warrior is now being forced to defend his own reputation, one that is hanging by a thread after several male colleagues came forward in June with a sea of allegations exposing Wootton as a predator. Divine justice. The heavy accusation came shortly after Wootton's ex-boyfriend, Alex Turby, found a series of disturbing emails on Wootton's hard drive under the pseudonym Martin Branning. Turby uncovered proof that his partner was secretly living a double life, allegedly creating fake online identities to bribe male co-workers to send him explicit ass content, all under the guise of a mundane screen name. Wow, some people live like that. Disgusted, Turby took his finding to Twitter and published a series of tweets that garnered over 50 million views. He said he became suspicious of Wootton after discovering that his ex had unauthorized access to his email and social media accounts, and then noticed his Gmail account was being accessed from an IP address belonging to News of the World office, Wootton's workplace at the time. So I think I covered this, the old thread, or went through some of the thread on X Twitter. So the mainstream media conversation between the colleagues and partners, some called Martin Branning, whereby an arrangement was indeed made to make the sex tape in secret without his colleagues' knowledge in exchange for 500 quid. I knew instantly that Martin Branning was done, Turby wrote. Soon after Turby's hard drive discovery, individuals with links to the Sun, Wootton's former employer, started coming forward accusing the broadcaster of offering them large amount of money in exchange of explicit as favors. Report claims these individuals were approached online by a man posing as a talent agent named Martin Branning. According to Byline Times, Wootton was offering sums up to $30,000 tax-free to his targets. Why? He was splurging to get his fantasy in check, right? To realize his fantasy, apparently. Byline Times has extensive evidence to show that between 2008 and 2018, Wootton, who is gay, posed as a fictitious show business agent called Martin Branning to offer sums up to $30,000 tax-free to his targets, many of whom were heterosexual men. Ooh, wow. So anyway, let's skip a little bit here because you can also read if you want to. But there are many claims, and there was also another guy that was accused of being, just somebody feeding off the momentum of all those accusations. So this is a screenshot of an email. Hi, I need set up as new pay, please. He needs to put down for $1,500 urgently on the Amber Heard splash for 5th from last week's. Thanks, done. So those are suppose all the article. Wootton cries witch hunt. We know this, that Wootton now went online already a while ago claiming that this was all organized as smear campaign, and one of the person that he always targeted, Lily Allen, responds to Don Wootton. Last night claimed he's a victim of a smear campaign by nefarious players with an axe to grind. That his accuser is running a campaign to destroy his life. The irony is not lost on me. Maybe now Dan can begin to understand what it felt like. Actually, I wish him well. I hope that he comes out on the other side of whatever it is that he's facing, and that eventually it leads him to a place of happiness, peace, and truth. Those are a lot of good wishes for somebody that looks like walking human manure. Following on from my tweet yesterday, I see that some think I was blaming Don Wootton for my dependencies. I don't expect people to understand the pain associated with being arrested in a very public way that I was for a good 15 years. But just because you can't understand it, it doesn't mean that it didn't happen. It did. Peaches Geldof, Amy Winehouse, and Caroline Fleck were all bullied and abused, subjected to the same kind of harassment. If I'm not mistaken, Caroline Fleck even took her own life. Might be wrong there. So absolutely atrocious. And at the same time, I was the culture back then. We were fair game because we were female, young, articulate, well-paid, brilliant at our jobs, vulnerable and relatable. We all wore our hearts on our sleeves and spoke our truths. And for that, we needed to be destroyed. I can't speak for the women above, neither can they, for obvious reason. But I know how trapped I felt, how lonely, how isolated I was, how scared I was, how unfair and desperate it all felt, and how substances and alcohol felt like the only way. So, it's always difficult to judge somebody that has addiction, and definitely I don't think it helps to be targeted and to be smeared for years on end. Actually might have the detrimental effect that somebody, when it's a little bit too down, it takes the way out, like it happened to the lady we just discussed before. So absolutely shame on that individual. On August 4th, DG Media released a statement. We are continuing to consider as a series of allegations which Don Wootton, who has written columns for Mail Online since 2021, as one of several outside freelance contributors, has strenuously denied. The allegations are obviously serious but also complex and historic, and there is an independent investigation underway at the media group which employed him during the relevant period. In the meantime, his freelance column with Mail Online has been paused. So it's getting a little bit of the same medicine. So okay, we know this. We know also the backlash between J.K. Rowling and Johnny Depp, because J.K. Rowling was okay by casting Johnny in Fantastic Beast. And you also know that when the op-ed came out, like we saw the interview yesterday, unceremoniously Johnny Depp was asked after days of work the very morning after to resign from the project. So that tells you a lot. And she was targeted by Wootton by accusing her to be an hypocrite, to basically allowing a wife beater to have, a job. It's all coming to an end. I want to scroll a little bit down where you see here the judge connection. This is very important because I think some people do know this and some other people don't, that there are serious, let's say, conflict of interest here, and most likely a lot of advantages given to the son and to AH, the positions and everything that comprised, all her evidence, so to speak. And you will understand why. So the Sun newspaper, Wootton run from 2007 to 2021, responsible for the hit piece against Depp, is published by the News Group Newspapers division of News UK, a wholly owned subsidiary of Rupert Murdoch's News Corporation. The Sun is under the News Corp umbrella. Wootton worked at Talk Radio, owned by Wireless Group, a subsidiary of News Corp. Wootton hosted a weekly talk radio show called Dan's Dilemmas. So Judge Nichol's son, Robert Palmer, was also part of the Talk Radio roster of personalities during the time Wootton was employed there. Robert Palmer was listed as executive director of advocacy organization Tax Justice UK and made multiple appearances on the Talk Radio. So there you get the guy right here with the personal pronouns he, him. Jesus Christ. So the public started connecting those dots once a detailed flowchart was published breaking down Judge Nichol connection to various harms in the media. It raised new questions about Nichol's neutrality in the Depp case after it was exposed that his son was part of the Talk Radio while that Wootton was employed by the company. This connection, which was swiftly deleted from Palmer's Twitter account following its exposure, raised a new question about impartiality in the trial. So you got right here the dude, right? Let's look at this. This is quite interesting because there's a lot of connections, right? And none of those look good for Johnny Depp, because you see that the judge, right, which is connected to, I think, let me see, there must be a wife of this judge. I think, here we go. This is probably the wife of the judge. This is the son of the judge. This is the connection to the talk show radio, to Don Wootton that wrote the article for the Sun that got published. That, of course, was about Johnny Depp. But the interesting part here is, I think this connection, mutual friend of this Katie Lette, which hosted private owner party during the trial that Amber Heard went to, right? So there is a direct connection to the wife also of the judge, right? So Geoffrey Robertson married to this Katie Lette, Jen Robinson, employer and mentor of Jen Robinson, which is a friend, seems like, connected Amber Heard to private party dinner, and the whole thing, you see where it goes, right? So yeah, I mean, it's undeniable that there are connections right there, right? I say, is this lady? One of those two are the lady that we just discussed. So you see that probably she had that kind of privilege, right, of being behind the scene, well connected. But was Robert Palmer one of Wootton's victims? Well, we don't know. This is a big allegation. That could be interesting. If Robert Palmer is a gay man, that would be interesting to explore. Not the fact that he's a gay man, but the fact that he probably maybe was connected to Wootton in that way. Among them are very serious executive at Rupert Murdoch News UK, alongside at least 6 other staff at the Sun newspaper, one with close links to the News UK CEO Rebecca Brooks, friends, Facebook associate and user of the dating app Grindr and Gaydar, Byline Times. All right? Because we know Judge Nichol's son Robert Palmer worked at talk radio during the time Wootton was employed there, is it possible that Robert might have been a victim of Wootton's catfish bribes? Several of Wootton's co-workers came forward as victims, so the theory certainly tracks. Was Judge Nichol protecting his son? Bear in mind that this was his last trial before retiring immediately following that verdict. So, I mean, the more people have gone in depth into this, but the more you see this, right, the more you understand that there are all the right things to suspect that there are conflict of interest of the judge, and he didn't give a damn because it was his last trial. So whatever would have happened, you cannot fire him. So once online sleuths uncovered this point of corruption, they took to Twitter to publicly question Judge Nichol's intention, which they argued was an apparent conflict of interest in the case. Many felt Judge Nichol shouldn't have been allowed to judge a trial between Depp and the son, given that his son worked around Wootton, whom Johnny was suing. I completely agree. And, there is a petition here, of course, that it's still ongoing. And how many signatures did it reach? Oh, wow, I'm surprised that it didn't reach 25,000 already. Maybe I should sign it too later. So this is a petition to open the trial again, or to look into it. Special treatment in court. Beside other obvious connections, Judge Nichol gave Amber Heard special treatment throughout the trial. He allowed her to sit in court as a witness, watching and hearing the proceeding and evidence, and subsequently writing addendums to her witness statement once the trial was underway, which would never have been allowed in the United States. Wow, this I didn't know. Further proof that inappropriate connection based on personal conflict should have recused Nichol from the case. I apologize. Web of connection continued. Judge Nichol co-authored a book of media law with Geoffrey Robertson, who was married to author Katie Lette, a longtime friend of Judge Nichol's wife Camilla Palmer, a judicial mediator and hardcore feminist. Camilla Palmer also happens to be good friend with Jen Robinson. I mean, here the key word is feminist, and also believe women by default. I mean, you all see the soup. You can see how the whole machine of activism, ideology, and all of that just was concocted together to use this event of this statement of right, to promote that type of agenda against Johnny Depp. So it was really the perfect storm. And she was lucky, Amber H, to find herself in all of that connected. And then no wonder Johnny Depp lost the defamation lawsuit against the Sun. So, unbelievable. So Judge Nichol, Geoffrey Robertson, and Jen Robbins have all worked at the same law practice. The latter still do. Wow, these are so many incredible connections. So the media coined Amber's Angels to refer to the high-profile girl gang supporting Amber Heard during the UK trial. Katie Lette supported Amber behind the scenes. She hosted the star-studded dinner party to boost her confidence during the trial. Amber was the guest of honor that night. So, can you imagine? Amber Heard was having it. Like, no wonder, right? She continued to go with that. Because thanks to the Me Too movement, thanks to the perfect storm of this whole political motivated agenda to promote the Me Too movement and feminist or whatever, whatnot, right? The activist, she became literally bigger than she could have ever become as an actress. So obviously she would have continued to do it. But yeah, you cannot hide a turd for long, the smell sooner or later is going to reach, and that's exactly what happened. The strunz, like we say in Napolitan, floats to the surface. So you had all these ladies, right? Which they didn't care about facts. They just cared about winning the ideology war, the whatever activism or whatever. Tale of two billionaires links to Musk and Murdoch. This is point of contention in my opinion, but could be. Despite the text used in court showing Amber admitted she used Elon to fill space, after a split with Depp and that was never in love with Musk, Musk never slandered her publicly. I've said this many times. Elon Musk was another victim. She jumped from a very wealthy man to another incredibly wealthy man that probably, he's probably not the, let's say, the smartest guy when it comes to women. Let's put it this way. So, in my opinion, he was definitely a victim. And he got out of it just in time before he would have been sucked or, who knows what could have happened. He responded to a tweet by Lex Friedman, which is a great podcaster and also computer scientist, wishing both of them, Depp and her, the best. I hope they both move on. At their best, they're each incredible. Musk tweeted. I don't know how good, honestly, Musk knows Johnny Depp. And also, I don't know how good he knows Amber Heard, because there is the honeymoon phase in whatever time they were together. So definitely, she could have passed for an incredible person, like it happened with Johnny Depp in the beginning. But the problem with pathological narcissists, they always come after. So the theory being here that Amber initially had Elon under her thumb because of rumored blackmail. Now he's permanently tied to her because of the alleged embryo baby that was born just before the trial began. So, to sum it up, Amber is tied to Elon, Elon to Murdoch, Murdoch to Wootton, Wootton to Nichols, Nichols to Amber. That's an incredible circle. I have to say, Elon Musk is not that dumb. I know matter of fact from friends that actually have met him and have met his family. They usually, they're actually very cautious people. You sign NDAs and all that kind of stuff. So I think that Elon Musk also, when he was dating, he probably, set the right boundaries, even if he allowed for those embryos to be frozen with this semen, like he did with other people. So probably must have signed some paper already beforehand. But anyway, which makes everything that happened since increasingly suspicious. Take this recent decision on the dog smuggling case in Australia. Officials announced on August 23rd they would not be prosecuting Heard for allegedly lying to a court about how her Yorkshire Terrier were smuggled into Australia 8 years ago. Prosecution action will not be taken against Heard over allegation related to her sentencing for the illegal import of 2 dogs. Well, in a way, I think it's also a resource that they don't want to spend on this case. Nothing happened, so they didn't endanger the flora, the fauna, whatever. Which is the case here. You want to be careful what you bring in those type of countries. So probably they're just dropping it because they don't consider it worth it, I suppose. But maybe there is more. Now imagine how different things would have been if Wootton had been exposed for his sexual crime earlier during Depp vs. Heard trial. One of Amber's most loyal supporters exposed for predatory behavior in the workplace owned by Murdoch would have undoubtedly raised a red flag about her association. I mean, turds, they hang out with turds. I'm not surprised, honestly. Timing is everything. If there is anything we can be sure of, it's that nothing in these high-profile legal battles is coincidence. Consider the timing of the Australian Department of Agriculture's decision came right after the Netflix Depp vs. Heard documentary aired in the US and Australia. The documentary, while subtly framed, presents a pro-Heard stance, blaming the court of public opinion for influencing the US verdict, but failing to mention anything about how Amber Heard's close relationship with the key players in the UK trial heavily influenced that verdict. But that's what we get when we let big budget production decide our villains for us based on heavily funded billionaires' bias. Dan Wootton was a serial bully at the Sun, but bosses promoted him as complaints were silenced. So, I mean, this is absolutely nothing new to me in the way that, to me, it's clear that the villain is AH and her connection and everything hated her to escape for so long. And thanks to the Virginia court, which was unbiased and looked through the evidence, and the jury, they awarded Johnny Depp the victory, which stands to this day. So that's why we also fight this type of trash. I'm referring to the documentary, because that type of delusional take about male victims still exists, because it's motivated by ideological, like, toxic feminists, right? Which they do not accept. They don't want to accept that Amber H actually is a fraud and that actually played all of them, and therefore they have to continue with the narrative to try to safeguard their image because they're involved. And if they manage, it's a double victory, because they can still be perpetuating that kind of false idea that listen women by default, you know, by without looking into the evidence. So what can I tell you, man? We are here. So if you want, you know, fight, like the video, share it. So the more people watch it, the better. I hope this video wasn't too long. Thank you so much to Jessica Recrass for this nice article. And please subscribe. I'll talk to you later. Ciao.